And next thing you know, an hour later, it's everywhere. Hodinkee, the Swatch website. And I'm like, I was just so confused. So I made a comment in my stories, in my Instagram stories, saying I think Revolution may have leaked this. And funny enough, actually, Waco from Revolution follows me. We've, chatted back and forth a while. I've been trying to get him on the show. And he basically sent me a message. He's like, yeah, man, we messed up. And I'm like, hey, Way, it's all good. As long as nobody gets in trouble, it's all love on this end. And he just thumbs up my comment. So, but people have been speculating. They're like, no, it wasn't a mistake. They did it on purpose. It's to create hype. So I want to get you guys' thoughts. Was it leak? Was it not leak? Was it supposed to come out later? What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I don't know if it was leaked purposely. I kind of feel like with some of the videos I've seen, like with people going to certain Swatch stores and like just running for the door, like creating that massive panic. People got hurt, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't think they would leak it like that because this is big. I don't think it was leaked purposely, or maybe it was. Maybe they wanted to create that panic. I wouldn't. I'm just going from the way I feel. I wouldn't want to create that panic,
Okay.
especially for watch this non-limited edition.
Okay.
So,
I
Guys,
don't think it was a. I don't think it was a leak either. I think, or not deliberately. I think that the news came out. I think if you think about how this was first kind of broken on social media, there were little teaser trailers,
right.
Very subtle, very low key. And I actually don't think that Swatch Group and Omega had any idea that this was going to be so big. And I think that they were planning just on, trickling this out. And, it just went crazy.
Fred?
Yeah, I mean, like I even shared one of their like little subtle teasers. Everything was all circled around the 26th, and then I think the leak came 23rd, something like that. So I think that, yeah, I don't think this was something that was premeditated, and also you can kind of see, like from what I've spoken to people, like in Australia, in Southeast Asia as well, like in Singapore and whatnot. You had thousands and thousands of people lining up for stores that had allocations of like 100 watches, maybe.
Yeah.
So
right.
like they definitely weren't prepared for that demand. I think they were banking on it being decently big, but I think the leak just created so much hype at the time when they weren't ready. They probably thought, okay, we'll release it on the 26th. You'll have a few people come in on the same day as sort of like the shock value, and then like over the next few days, they'll have some time to sort of get stock up to date and all that. Like to give you an idea, in Cologne, in Germany, where I live, they didn't even have it in the store. Like they didn't even receive it in stock. But meanwhile, there were pictures online of like the Frankfurt and Dusseldorf stores getting swamped by everyone, going crazy. And so I think they just weren't ready because of that leak. It just created all the hype 3 days earlier than they needed it to be.
Yeah, well, that's so Paul from Wristwatch Addiction. He's been again, a guy from Tennessee here in the US. He's a good friend of the channel. He's been all over it before it was even a thing, right? He's been talking about it. If you go back like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever, when it started, he's like super excited about it because he actually owns the same Speedy I do, and that's how we met. And he just loves Omega. But yeah, he basically, I guess, got some information. He's like, look, this was absolutely a leak. And the Swatch stores, whatever, they weren't ready for this, just like you said, Fred. The whole thing was, it was supposed to be information was supposed to come out on the 26th, maybe the 25th, like really late at night or whatever, and create a little bit of hype and be like, hey, surprise, we have these in store, just limited supplies for some people. So the way that it came out, you're right, they weren't ready, and they had already said it was going to come out on the 26th, so they couldn't back out and say, okay, we're not. But what they did do is they changed it from 2 per household to 1 per household. Not that it mattered because nobody could get them, right? But so next question is, do you think Swatch could have handled distribution better? And I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because if it was a leak, that's what they were ready for. They weren't ready for this. It's not like they could go back to their manufacturer and say, hey, we have 3 days, mass produce 1 million watches for us. So do you think they could have handled distribution better? What would you guys do as a brand representative of Swatch? What would you do different? So any of you guys want to jump in?
Well, let me take this one.
Simon. Okay.
Yeah, I think that 100% they could have done things better. I was in London. I went down to London on. So I kind of first heard about this on. I started seeing things on Tuesday. Picked up on the leak. I think it was on Wednesday, maybe Thursday morning, and immediately booked a train to London because I called a couple of the Swatch stores, and one of the stores told me that they were only going to be available in 3 Swatch boutiques in London and one in Edinburgh in Scotland. Now, none of those are near me. I mean, I'm 200 miles away from London. So I booked a train to get down there on Friday night to be at the Swatch store early on Saturday. And, got there at before 6 a.m. and there were 1,000 people outside the store at that time. Crazy. And, there were people who had been sleeping there since Thursday outside the store, from what I understand. There were people getting very frustrated. There were people queue jumping. The police were then called, and they told the stores they had to close. And I think that to me, what that says is the fact that they were only available in 3 stores in England when there were probably 25 Swatch stores says that they obviously didn't have very much stock.
Yeah.
The stores that did have the watches only had between 100 and 150 pieces, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So they couldn't service a demand for them that was already there anyway. I think that this is why I think they had no idea how popular this watch was going to be. Because if they knew it was going to be as popular, they would have released it when they had much greater levels of stock. Or they were trying to keep an element of exclusivity and make it a very kind of small scale launch in the hope that it would, rather than flooding the market with them, that it would keep a little bit of brand exclusivity for Omega. Maybe. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't think they thought that it would be as huge. Like you said, I don't necessarily think they thought it was going to be as huge. You said 150 per store. Like, that's ridiculously insane. If they would have, even with the leak, and then somebody just walking into a Swatch store and saying, "Oh, Omega cross Swatch," that's gonna cause hype and panic right there, regardless. You know what I mean? Like, this was a huge release. I don't think it was nothing more they could have done besides make more quantities of the watch. And if they weren't ready, just not release it until they was ready.
Fred,
And I think so much of it has to come down to what Omega's actual original plan was. Were they planning on, obviously it was planned to be released on the 26th, but was the idea to do the final, announcement late night on the 25th, to do it on the 26th itself when the stores open? Because my guess is what they were banking on is, okay, they knew this was going to be big, but not as big as it was, because at the end of the day, they had 3-4 days of build-up hype, which they weren't anticipating. They were probably expecting, okay, let's say we release it, do the final release announcement on the 26th itself when our stores open. So, people will catch on, but over the course of the day, they'll sell out by, I don't know, 4 p.m., something like that.